Okay, part two. So let us also take a look at the mountain ranges nearby Chennai towards the south. So if you look here down along the coastline, you don't see much. It's kind of all flat terrain all along the coast. If you go a little bit inside again, you see some isolated mountain ranges which are part of the same eastern Ghats. Here close to Tirunvanmalai, you have this fairly big range here, which is the Javadi Hills. That's also a nice place. A little bit less of a jungle because you have a lot of villages there, which kind of make exploration, I mean, like exploration without coming into touch with the locals less obvious. Then here we have close to Jolarpet. Some of you guys will know the Allegheny Hills. So that is again a place with a lot of villages, flats, a lot of paddy fields, so not much kind of jungle left to explore. Looks like a small dot here, but still, I mean, if you look at the scale, this is at least 10 by 10 kilometers, so 100 square kilometer again. We go further south, we come to Salem. Salem again, you have a couple of interesting ranges. You have the Aircut here, that's hill station, which is the Shivaroy Hills. To the right of that, you have a fairly large range, which is the Kalrayan range, where CTC has done a couple of social treks. Kind of, I mean, trying to combine a trek with sponsoring some local schools there. I think, again, something is coming up this June. And then, of course, you might have heard of the Collie Hills, south of Salem, which is also a pretty nice place, famous for black magic. Okay, and if we zoom out a little bit, let me zoom out so you can see the whole of South India in this terrain view again, right? Especially this terrain view really brings out the mountains. So you can see this whole Western Ghats here on the western coast of Kerala and Karnataka. If you zoom in here, we got Pollachi, so here we got this top slip. This entire range is like, you got Bodhi here, you got Kodaikanal there, so this is like, I'm not familiar with the name, so this is like a huge range. I mean, to enter the Western Ghats, typically people there are very strict from the forest department. You always need to get permission. You got the Uti Hills here, you got the Silent Valley here, you got close to Calicut here, you'll have Wayanad here. We have gone a couple of times to Wayanad. And then one nice place, if you go kind of straight from Bangalore to Mangalore, here you can see Shaklespur. So here you have this kind of famous Ombati-Gude range, which is like a beautiful deep jungle, lots of snakes there, very dense jungle, beautiful kind of a signature there is typically that you see these beautiful green, light green grass peaks, and then the hills down are actually dark green because of the jungle. This is a beautiful place, I mean, totally unexplored, very large without any, like hundreds by hundreds of kilometers without any human settlements, any tea estates or anything. So a wonderful place to explore. Not much trouble to get permission there. You can just get off the bus and jump into the jungle. Okay, so now let's zoom in a little bit. I'm gonna go back to this Nagalapuram because it's like a smaller range. So let's zoom a little into those highest levels, the highest three detail levels where we can see those topo lines. You can also see, right, that these areas are colored green. So this is green, this is green. Here some of these other mountain areas are kind of not green. You can see some parts which are green, some parts which are not green. So the green places are the National Reserve Forests. So these are like protected mountain ranges where you normally need to get permission to enter, so that I mean the forest department can keep track of movement of people in order, I guess, not to disturb the wildlife. So let's zoom in a little. So again, you can see the topo lines appearing. So let me now, I mean, get a little bit more in depth on what does this mean. Let's go to the highest zoom level. So depending on the zoom level, I mean, the meaning of the lines will be different. So now you can see that you have two types of lines. You got the thin lines and you got the thick lines. The thick lines will correspond to like multiples of 100 meters. When I say 100 meters, I'm talking about the altitudes, like vertical altitudes. When we talk about altitude, we don't talk like we're going up on a gradient. 100 meters means 100 meters above the sea level. So if you look here, when you kind of come from the plains, so let me explain first. The big lines are like 100 meters. And you can see that in between those bigger lines, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of 5 smaller lines. So that means every small line will correspond to an increase of 20 meters in altitude. Right? So if you start walking from here, so 200, 180, 160, 140. So if you start walking from here, actually you will go slowly up, say from 140, you keep walking, you go to 160 meter, 180 meter. Here you go to 200 meters. And then here you can see that as the lines become closer to each other, you can obviously imagine that the gradient will increase, right? Because if you look at the scale here, this is your horizontal distance. So this means that, I mean, on my computer this is 2 centimeter here. There it's like, I guess, 30 centimeter. So if this is 30 centimeter here, so if you, that means if you move from here to here, right, 30 centimeters horizontally, you're increasing from 140 to 200, so you're increasing 60 meters. So for every 500 meter forward, you're increasing your altitude, and you're going up by 40 meter. Right? So that basically means, yeah, I don't know, just to make sure that everyone gets the point. So that means for 500 meter, which is fairly long, we are kind of increasing, like say 40 meter in height, right? So then you understand that this is kind of your average incline, right? So this is probably 10 degrees. I mean, this is just an approximate number. So 500 meter I go forward and I climb 140 to 260 meter up, right? So this is my incline. Now let's keep walking, right? So we're at the 200 meter line, and now actually we can see that we are going actually very fast now. We're here somewhere. So if we now go forward, the lines become very close. So that means if I now go forward here for, I guess this is around 250 meter. So I'm suddenly in 250 meter itself, I'm going up by 100 meter. So what does this mean? Now in 250 meter, which is half of 500, I'm going up 100 meter, which is probably around, I mean about this, right? This is 60, so this is 100. So now you can see that your steepness has increased much more. Everyone is with me? Maybe I'm a little bit too simplified, but that's important. So if you look at these lines, right, they are a little irregular. If the lines are very close to one another, like here, it becomes very, very steep. If the lines are like far away from each other, the increases in altitude, the topo lines, then basically you have a very easy slope to walk up. So that's point number one. Second point that you should kind of clearly read out of this topographic map is you can see that eventually all the lines will become concentric, right? So that they might be moving, but if you follow one line of the same altitude, so here I'm moving along the 400 meter line, so if I would be walking along this line exactly, I would never go up or down. I would be keeping walking on a horizontal, come in Hari, I would be walking on a flat line across this mountain actually. So, and if you actually go higher and higher, you will actually see that the topo lines actually become smaller and smaller. They actually converge. So if I just maybe create a map out of this, I'm going to my maps, so I can actually create some kind of map here where I can add some detail. Tutorial. So if I save this, if I put a couple of points here, so where the lines actually come together, that basically means that this will be the highest point. So this basically corresponds to a mountain peak. So this is the highest point. So this will be a peak, which is very clear because as you can see, no matter which direction you go, as you go away from the peak, you will go lower and lower from 500 plus here to 500, 400, 300, right? In all directions you are going away from the inner circle. So that means basically you are losing altitude. Can somebody tell me, I mean, to reach this peak? Okay, we'll have to cut again. 10-minute timeout. Let me just save the recording and cancel.